All right, we are live. Sony Open Week, first full field event of the year. A tournament I love, a tournament I've had a lot of success at over the past couple of years. So the Sony always has a warm place in my heart, and I got a ton to talk about today. I'm excited to dive into this DraftKings pricing. I think there's a number of guys that are way off from the pricing I expected, and obviously we got some recap to do for the century. So RB, how you doing today, my man?
Good. Happy to be back for week two. Started week one with a Colin Morikawa loss, just like most of 2024. So it feels great.
Well, we'll get to some century recap. The first thing that I want to address is that every week in the Insider, one of my favorite things that we have behind the paywall at Inside Sports Network is we do a staff picks column, but it's actually like really fun questions. I do a staff picks column for Golf Digest, and we did kind of our own swing on this where we keep a season tally because we are all about accountability here over at Inside Sports Network. And so one of the questions that we ask is, who is your fade of the week? But you actually lose points if your fade of the week wins. So in our season tally, for example, you have to pick somebody under 30-1 every single week that isn't going to win the tournament. And of course, and you lose 5 points off your season tally if your fade wins. And of course, in perfect fashion of just like, gosh, what a way to ring in the New Year's, Brian Kirscher and I both picked Hideki Matsuyama as our fade of the week and are now fighting a massive deficit without even 1 week into the year. So massive hand up on the Hideki feed. But like I said, we are all about accountability here at ISN. BK already in here with the I stand by it. I kind of do too. Like I can give you pretty coherent and cogent reasons why I didn't think Hideki was going to win this week. But what did you think about the performance?
Yeah, I mean, my thing with him is like he's as unpredictable as a winner as he is as a fade, right? Kind of just one of those guys that I stay away from, except when he's on a tremendous heater, because we've seen he can ride that heater. But look, he played great. Iron play was great. Obviously made a ton of putts, broke every record that was imaginable. Yeah, just kind of he kind of sucked the life early on the weekend, and Morikawa just couldn't get over the hump.
The other thing I'll say about what I think my numbers may have missed on the Hideki fade and why the Hideki fade was a huge mistake is like one of the things that I was looking at pre-tournament and talked about in the shows is spike putting percentage, right? Like this is one of the things that we talked about on the Monday show. I talked about in my podcast. It came up hugely with guys like Max Greiserman and Taylor Pendrith and Harry Hall, like a lot of those guys that had the ability to gain 3, 4, 5 strokes putting in a given round. This was a tournament that you needed to do that at, right? And the leaderboard bore that out. And the thing that's tricky with Hideki is his spike putting performance still is really low. Like if you look on the rabbit holes by the numbers, like Hideki does not spike with the putter very often. But when he does spike, he generally just wins the tournament because the ball striking is already so solid. And I mean, he gained 5 strokes putting. That was more than enough that you needed. He would have won the tournament gaining 3 strokes putting, to be honest with you, too. That's what happens when you lead the field in approach play. But I think that was probably the thing I missed with Hideki is like, gosh, even if the spike putting percentage is low, he's still somebody you always have to be concerned about fading because with the ball striking floor being what it is and his also ability to lead the field on approach in any given week, if you have that once in every 30 weeks where he gains over 5 strokes putting, he's probably going to win the tournament.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that last year was, I mean, obviously a very good overall year for him. And, you know, he had those spike weeks. at Riv in the playoffs. But I think overall he seemed to putt better last year. He still had some really bad weeks, but
He
seemed to
did.
put a lot here. So
Both Corey Connors and Hideki, I just want to flag this now because we'll talk about Connors. I like Connors a lot this week as well at Sony. Both of those guys are improving as putters. I don't think that it's going to show up every single week. I think they're both going to have a number of weeks this year where Connors and Hideki drive you absolutely crazy on the greens. I mean, that was one of the things that was so funny about Hideki winning Centuries at the prior year. He lost over 10 strokes putting at the Century, and then ends up having a 15-stroke swing with one club in your bag from one year to the next. But Connors is another guy that Connors gained over 7 strokes putting last week at the Century, and I think a lot of people, myself included, didn't think the Century was the best spot for him compared to the golf course that he'll have this week, which I think is a phenomenal golf course for him and where I bet him last year. But that's just another thing I want to monitor, is that I think some of these guys like Connors and Hideki that we typically think of as bad putters, I've started to see some pretty impressive marginal incremental improvements in their putting. Before we get into the Sony, do you have any wide ranging thoughts on the Century? Like, what did you think about the scoring? I know that that's been a topic of debate. Like, have we gone too far? Have we broken contain with the scoring at the Century?
Yes. I mean, I don't know what they do about it. I mean, there was no wind, and it's a wedge fest, and the par fives are short, and like that's just something that you're gonna do. I think they have to treat it like it is. Like, just make that the thing. Make it like these guys are gonna come out here, they're gonna shoot 40 under. It's vacation, right? Like, I think you have to embrace that. In terms of players, one of the biggest things, Cam Young. How about that short game? Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Could be a thing.
Yeah, it could be a thing. That's the thing that I think you really want to monitor really in the season here, is that how we think about players. Every single year, a player's profile is going to change, okay, during the offseason. Like, a good example of this last year is Colin Morikawa. I always thought of statistically as like having a really poor short game. He showed up for 2025 or 2024, and his short game really improved. Like, Colin Morikawa became overall a plus short game player around the green. So, time will tell if 2025 is just the year that Corey Connors turns into a plus putter, or Hideki Matsuyama turns into a long-term plus putter, or like you said, Cameron Young just figures out around the green play. But you kind of do have to approach some of this with a clean slate in terms of, and that's the other thing about Kapalua too, is guys have gotten so long now, and I was not buying for 1 second this ridiculous narrative that like the golf course was going to play softer and dramatically different. Like, no. Colin Morikawa is hitting 400-yard drives by Friday afternoon. A lot of those par fours are 30-yard shot second shots. Like, a lot of those par fours are in that 30 to 60-yard range, which is like just teetering the edge of whether that's a proximity bucket or around the green play. And God, you want to file this away for next year at the Century, unless they change anything on the golf course. Between 30 to 80 yards at the Century may win you the tournament.
Yeah, it was a joke. I mean, yeah.
The other thing I would say, just to put a bow on the scoring too, is like, I'm a big architecture guy. Obviously, that's that's been kind of my corner for my 5 years in this industry. The defense of this golf course, take it for somebody that like is extremely enamored by topography and shot options and shot values. Like, this golf course is on a pretty exciting piece of land, and I would personally love to go play this golf course. And that's certainly not something I would say about all PGA Tour courses. Like, the defense of this golf course having good architecture as a reason why it doesn't need to be harder is like, God, it's just way over. Like I am a fan of the no laying up guys. I don't agree with them on everything, but like listening to them talk about last night, defending how the architecture of this golf course makes the tournament more interesting. I'm just like, guys, I'm not there. Like what actually makes a golf tournament interesting for professional golfers, and architecture often plays a giant role in this, but it doesn't at Kapalua when all the shots are inside 80 yards, is there needs to be high variance holes. Okay. And the problem with Kapalua is that there's just become, it's not a good chasers golf course. And I think people think about golf courses where you can make a lot of birdies as good chasers golf courses. But like a great chasers golf course, the other part of the equation is that there needs to be opportunities for the guys leading to go backwards. And Hideki had a great final round performance. Hideki also hit some really loose shots on Sunday that he did not get penalized with whatsoever. And gosh, can you think of any holes outside of like a 50-yard slice on 14 where you really have the opportunity to go backwards and make not just like a stupid 3-putt bogey, but like a double bogey?
No, I mean, Justin Thomas found some, but no, I mean, the fairways are huge. There wasn't any wind. I felt like the greens, well, I guess they're always a little soft, but I felt like they were really soft this year. Balls just stopping as soon as they hit them. And I think, like you said, with a hard golf course, with a course where you want some chasers, you need firm greens. Like,
yes,
like you need angles and you need firm greens. Like I think about watching like the US Open, and like one of my favorite viewing experiences is like, all right, he hit it here off the tee. I know that he can't get close to that hole. I know that he probably can't hold the green from where he is, right? And you just, you don't get any of that out here.
Final thing on the Sentry, again, in the interest of accountability at ISN, do not think that there is a lot of, there's not enough accountability in this industry. So every single week we will spend just as much time on the things that we got wrong as opposed to the things we got right. So I think a fun way to do these Monday shows is like one formal apology and one Vic lap. I will hand up formally apologize for Hideki, as well as I would like to throw add in a second formal apology on Xander. I got the bottom super well this week. Okay. I was all over Dietrich and Hoagie and Mav McNeely. And I had so many great, and Straka, and I had so many great lineups where the guys that I played under 7.5K were doing really, really well. And the Morikawa over JT decision, that ended up being correct for me. Cantlay's his whole other thing. But Xander, I mean, Xander really took me out of a lot of great opportunities to take advantage of nailing the bottom of the board. And I'm not going to put any stock into it in terms of how I view him going forward. In fact, he played great over the weekend. He played great on Saturday and Sunday, and it doesn't change how I feel about Xander one iota. But anything that surprised you this weekend? Yeah, Cam Davis too. As a God, when Cam Davis was 4 over through 3 in the Discord, I thought the company was ending. Like I thought, I was like, that's it. Like we're done. And then he proceeded to shoot 21 under over his next 39 holes, capped off by playing the wrong ball with Zalatoris and missing out on the top 10 finish by a stroke because he played the wrong ball. But what was your biggest surprise? Maybe something that you got wrong at Sentry?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was overinvested in Justin Thomas. I still think it's a big year for him. That would be one. I gave BK a lot of crap for Sam Burns, and he did okay. So I will back off the Sam Burns slander. I had no idea that Aberg finished 5th. Don't know how that happened. I don't think I saw him get a shot all weekend, but that dude is going to be a problem.
There's already like 18 different bits in the in the Discord at the moment. So just a friendly reminder as well before we dive right into the Sony Open. please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You know, I would say the real magic happens in the Discord, and that's where you need to be. But at the very least, if you're just watching this show and this show helps you at all, please throw a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's how you comment and get involved in the live chat, by the way, is you have to be sub to the YouTube channel to comment. So yeah, please sub to the YouTube channel and let's dive right into the Sony. I've already talked about the golf course a fair amount on the Sunday show. Any wide-ranging macro thoughts about Waialae and the Sony Open before we dive into the pricing?
No, I think it's pretty standard. Obviously, accuracy, iron play, putting, wedge fest, the type of thing. I don't weigh the driving accuracy as much as a lot of people. Like, I get there's some Bermuda rough here, but it's Bermuda rough. It's never that long. Like, you can hit wedges and short irons out of this stuff pretty easily. But yeah, iron play, wedge play, putting this week, pretty straightforward.
I agree. I will say the one thing before we get into the pricing that I want to talk about this week as it pertains to Sony is, have you taken a look at the weather forecast this week at all? This is something I know Steve talked about in his Hold the Green podcast up on ISN right now. I talked about it a little bit on the Sunday stream, and there's an update I would like to provide with the weather here as well. I'm going to talk about it in the Discord all week, and my opinions will change on the weather, I'm sure, in the next 48 hours, which is the value of being part of the Discord and that Wednesday night stream. But I still think that this tournament is going to play harder than it has in years past, looking at what I'm seeing right now on Windfinder.
Yeah, I don't get too much into it until probably Wednesday, but it's certainly something to keep an eye on this week. Yeah.
The thing that I'm seeing right now is it looks like Thursday has calmed down a little bit. And it looks like we're going to get some rain on Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday. Yeah. Like, it's in 2020, Cameron Smith won this tournament at 8 under par, and it played as one of the top 10 golf courses on the PGA Tour that year in 2020. Now, I don't think that it's going to play quite as difficult, although the weather conditions that Cam Smith saw in 2020 were similar to what we're seeing this week. I do feel fairly comfortable suggesting that it's not going to be 20 under par this year. It wasn't even 20 under par last year, but it has been in the past. So I think we're probably looking at something in the 15 under range. And in my opinion, what that would do for my breakdown is, typically I've weighed putting pretty heavily at this golf course in the past. Like, it's still a pretty easy golf course under tranquil conditions where you can really lift and separate with your putter. I'm giving a bit of added weight to total driving, overall tee to green play, and short game this week in exchange for putting. Does this weather change at all your breakdown of the golf course?
I don't think so. I'm kind of with you overall. I don't really factor putting into the model as much as I do like as a tiebreaker and like that sort of thing. But yeah, I'm pretty much with you. Very heavy tee to green. You can skew towards accuracy, but I think you're going to land on the same names.
Let's dive into the pricing. And we will, as always, follow the format of going through each range top to bottom, get in and out for you in 45 minutes, then give something away as always at the end. Cam, do you have the guy that won? You can either put it in the chat or I can add you on to the stream real quick. But if you have the guy who won last week, every single week on this Monday show, we do a giveaway. And last week it was the guy in the 6K range that just played the best. Do you have that winner from last week so I can get in touch with them? Cam.
I'll get it right now. Sorry, I've been dealing with the kiddos in the back seat. We're on our way back from Mexico. I'll get that right now.
Put it in the chat. There's no rush. We'll dive into the pricing. Okay, RB, start us off at the top. We'll combine 9K and 10K range into one this week, but favorite and least favorite from 9K up.
Yeah, a lot of good options here. I'm going to go, I don't know if it's going to be chalk, but it's the Sony. It's Russell Henley. He played fine last week. I really have no issue with him at all. I think most of my lineups are probably going to start with Russell Henley. My fade of the week, don't love the golf course for Sahith. I have a feeling you're going to be pretty similar. He's a little too wild off the tee. I just want to see more from him in terms of these shorter accuracy wedge-based courses. So definitely Russell Henley and out on Sahith.
Here's how I feel about Russell Henley this week. So when I did my model, I was the Sony model writes itself, right? Like we already had a number of jokes over the weekend in the Discord about being able to guess who was going to pop for me at the Sony Open. And it's going to be the same names that you see every single year at Sony, Sedgwick, Colonial, right? Like your Russell Henleys, your Corey Connors, your Ben Griffins, your Seamus Powers, your Adam Svensons, your Daniel Bergers, like even your Eric Coles and your Brian Harmons, like those types of characters are always going to look statistically very sound at golf courses that tend to emphasize middle iron play, right? And so like one of the staples at Waialae is that you have a shit ton of approach shots from 125 to 200 yards, okay? You don't have very many long irons. The par fives are kind of a joke. The longest par three on the golf course is 204 yards. So the name of the game, the easiest roadmap to win the Sony Open, whether it's super calm or windy conditions, is always going to be middle iron play. 9 of the 12 par fours measure under 460 yards. Okay.
Yep.
Corey Connors and Russell Henley are like the two best middle iron players in the field, along with Hideki, right? Yep, and Hideki's a former winner here as well. And I think with Russell this week, I considered betting him. My betting thoughts I'll save for the Discord, but I think the pro Russell Henley case in terms of I'm going to bet this guy at 20 to 22 to 1, or I'm going to play him at whatever ownership in DFS is kind of like the long-term bull Xander case, right? And I'm not saying that Henley is half the player that Xander Schauffele is, but if you have like the most elementary understanding of data, then you understand and are going to look at Russell Henley and be like, this guy is really good at golf. Okay. This guy has been living in the data golf top 10 for like a year now. I mean, he led the field in ball striking at the Open Championship. Okay. He made a shit ton of money for me at the Open Championship and at the US Open. And I think if you're one of those people, and this happened with Xander, where it's just like, this guy is amazing at golf, I am just going to believe in him and bet him, and I will either get rewarded at the end of the day with 2 major championships like Xander, or probably in the case of Russell Henley, what's more realistic is like a Sony Open and maybe a signature event at Pebble Beach. If you're on that camp, you're on that camp. And then if you're on the camp of Russell Henley is overrated, I'm going to need to see it. I'm not going to bet him at 40 to 1. I'm certainly not going to bet him at 20 to 1. I don't care what your numbers are saying. I understand that argument too, but what may end up happening is like what happened with Xander at the Open Championship. It's like the numbers were there. Like the numbers were clear as day that this guy is amazing. Are the wins going to come or are they not?
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. However, I think this is the type of field where he is one of the favorites. These guys at the top are not prolific winners. I did not bet anybody up here, but I think Henley and Keegan were the two that I probably would have gone to first in that sort of 20 to 22 range. But it's going to be a long shot week for me, as I'm sure it will be for most people.
In a vacuum, who do you think is more likely to win this week? Forget the numbers, Henley or Connors?
Henley.
Yeah.
I just think he's going to make more putts. Like I think that's what it comes down to. Like you look at those top three, they're all not great putters, but if someone's going to putt well, it's probably going to be Russell Henley.
Yeah. I really do like Corey Connors as well. Spoiler alert, I'm not betting him at 14 or 16 to 1.
He's going to finish what, 8th, 9th, 7th?
Yeah.
Where's he going to finish?
Yeah, I bet him last year and he finished 12th. He's finished top 12 in 4 out of his last 6 Sonys. To give you my fade before we get into the 8s, I think I'm with you on Sahith. I don't think I'll have a ton of exposure to him. The other guy that I don't think, because I kind of like Siwoo this week. I was on Siwoo at 60 to 1 in 2023. Is a really good golf course for him. I like that he got some reps at the Century. He was good, not great. And I think Maverick McNeil is playing some really confident golf at the moment as well. Like I love the way that Mav is playing right now. His ball striking looked great at the Century. He's finished 7th at the Sony Open in the past. Benny on, I may go right back to again. I think the 20.
Yeah, we're not fading Benny on.
Yeah, but the 22 to 1 number, I feel entirely priced out of. I really thought that a middling finish at the Century would maybe give us Benny on in the 30s, but the books have a lot of respect for Benny on and Corey Connors this week, and I can't disagree with it. I think the guy probably just won't have a ton of exposure to is Bobby Mack at 93. And he's a little overpriced there. I would have put him in the 8s along with Sepp Straka. But talk us through the 8K range or any closing thoughts on the final guys I mentioned with the 9s.
Yeah, I think McIntyre would have been the other one that I consider for my fade. But like you mentioned with Maverick, he's just playing so well. Like I think he's just elevated himself right into that top 20, top 25 player in the world. And his ball striking was great last week. So I just don't want to go against that right now. 8Ks. So I want to preface this by saying I think everybody in the 8K range is playable. Like I don't think that. I think pricing is exceptionally soft this week. I think all these guys there's an argument for. So I'm going to go what I think is super contrarian. I assume the models are still going to love Davis Thompson, so I will pick him out as my fade here. I don't love the golf course for him. He doesn't have great history. Yeah, kind of middling last week. I made 2 bets in this range, so I guess I'll pick one of them. I bet Straka and I bet Ben Griffin. I think Sepp will be home, so let me take Ben Griffin as my best play in the range.
My model loves Ben Griffin as well. I believe that he is second in my entire model. If you were part of the Fall Swing Discord, you know that I pretty much hammered Ben Griffin in all markets every week during the Fall Swing. What's the pro Ben Griffin's going to win case? Because I am like 100% probably going to be with you in DFS. Does he have the chutzpah to win this type of event? 50 to 1 is not a bad.
I think so.
I bet Ben Griffin at 25 to 1. So I don't,
Yeah, I mean, he should have won the Sanderson last year. I'm glad he didn't because we had that 100 to 1 Luke List ticket, so that was pleasant. But yeah, like he seems very consistent, right? And he seems especially consistent on a specific type of golf course, which is exactly what this is. Really good approach player, very solid putter, loves Bermuda, like has played well in these windy condition courses. Finished 12th and 30th in his 2 attempts here, so obviously likes the golf course. And I think, at about 50 to 1, I just think he's better than that in this field.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't think he's going to end up making my betting card. He may, depending on what I decide to do with Siwoo Kim and Eckroat. I want to talk about Luke Clinton because Luke Clinton is probably, I think based on my numbers, the most underpriced player in this field. But I'm very bullish on Clinton. Like I have talked about him quite a bit in all of my season preview podcasts. And I talked about on Sunday, I think there are 2 things that he has going against him this week that I don't think is going to stop me from betting him and playing him in DFS. Although I would watch out about that ownership, like especially like me talking about him and everyone likes a shiny new toy in DFS, and Clinton has already give like incredibly strong early returns for players. He hasn't been super frustrating for guys yet. Guys haven't lost a ton of money on Clanton yet. The one caution to the wind I would throw with Clanton is this is a golf course that rewards experience, right? Like it is one of the more course history based golf course on the PGA Tour. He's never played this golf course before. And then the other thing, which I think is a little bit weaker, is historically you have wanted your guys to play the Century, although the last 2 years with Grayson and Siwoo, neither of them played the Century. So I don't even know how strong that trend is. And it does feel a little Ludwig at RSM to me, where this is definitely a better field, but Clanton's comp is like Victor. Okay. Like Clanton has a bad short game, and he is one of the top 5 drivers on the PGA Tour, maybe already. So the golf courses that I think Clanton's going to play well long-term are Torrey Pines, Bay Hill, Muirfield Village, these golf courses that emphasize total driving. Now, I think Sony's going to do that a little bit more this year in windy conditions, but it may just be a thing like we've seen with these guys. RSM was not a good golf course for Ludwig in terms of accentuating your skill set. But if you're good, these guys aren't going to wait.
Yes. I'm with you on Clanton, like that mold of like Hovland, Cam Young, I think that's kind of the mold that he's living in. And I think that off the tee prowess can be mitigated here a little bit. Am concerned about the iron game and the wedge game. His result at RSM was really in spite of the irons and wedges. He did not have a great week there. He putted really well, obviously drove it fine. So, but yeah, I think he is probably underpriced, but then you look at Data Golf and they have him very low in terms of their value ranking. So I don't know where that's going to middle out, especially with all the other options here. So like, I don't think he's going to be like 20% owned this week.
Ooh, I hope you're right. Let me give you this over under. What's up, Cam? Oh, he left for a second. We have, by the way, the Chairman Deacon, Johnny Vegas solo 4th. That is a phenomenal gummy play. I talked about Vegas a little bit, was not on him as a gummy play. So if your name is Deacon to the Legend 699, get in touch with me via Twitter or the Discord. And I have 2 options for you. Either Joey is going to send you a gummy themed care package, pending legal rules of shipping in the United States of America, or I'm going to give away a single entry that we'll build together, and I'll put up the entry fee. So shout out Deacon to the Legend 699. We will have another opportunity for the commenters at the end of the show. I over under like 17% on Clanton, because I'm still pretty bullish that he ends up being the highest owned player in the 8K range. I just think that the buzz and the steam about the shiny new toy, and in this case with Clanton, it's warranted, is going to be pretty strong personally.
Yeah, I think that number is going to be very close. I will take the under only because I think it's going to be very spread out on this slate.
Okay, so the other guy that I would mention in the 8s that I am a fan of this week is Eckroat. I think Eckroat 8.7 is very fair. I like him on golf courses that emphasize like total accurate driving of the golf ball. And if we think that driving is going to be a little bit more important this week at Sony than in years past, the inverse of that is that he has a really bad short game too. So like Clanton, like, yes, they're great drivers of the ball, which is going to help them in windy conditions, but with a lower greens and regulation percentage, their lack of short game expertise is also going to be potentially problematic. But I'm a big Eckroat guy this week as well. And then the one guy that I probably won't be on is, I'm with you, no Davis Thompson for me. Keep it simple. I'm kind of mediocre on Kitayama as well this week. Any closing thoughts for the 8s before we do 7s?
No, it's just there's 1,000 guys in the sevens, so I just think the eights are going to get passed over probably more than they should. So I think, like you said, if you want to do like a Clanton, Eckroat, Griffin team, I think that build is going to be pretty unique this week.
This is a nightmare for me too. Like I was going through the insider sheet because I update every single player in the field, you know, with my opinion, their model rank, their odds. I was like, oh, this is pretty easy with 60 players in the field. Last week, I'm going to have a busy afternoon and evening going through 144 players. It seems like the low sevens is loaded with guys that I really like. And actually, I need to really find some guys in the sixes or just build more balanced lineups because I was not seeing a ton of guys that I loved in the sixes. But walk me through the sevens. I would imagine starting with our guy Cam Davis at 7.9.
Yeah, he made the card this morning for sure after those final 3 rounds. And yeah, you mentioned before, you know, he's played okay here. Honestly, does pretty well on these short accuracy courses, even though that's not necessarily the profile. But in 2020, when it was the hardest scoring conditions out here, he finished 9th with ball striking, not with putting or anything like that. So yeah, perhaps there's something to that. But obviously, love Cameron Davis. You can't really come here without mentioning Chris Kirk right below him. I think Kirk will arguably be the highest owned, even higher than Billy Horschel, who, you know, just with name value right there, like I think those 3 are going to hog up a ton of the ownership. Berger, you mentioned, Cole, you mentioned, Dietrich, you mentioned, like all those guys are going to get played, which I think gives us a lot of opportunity here to pivot to much lower owned players.
I was going to ask you, because I do kind of a mock DFS pricing based on my thoughts on Saturday evening when I first run through my model. Now, Billy Horschel did not have the weekend that I was expecting at the Century, so he probably deserved to be a little bit lower. I thought Billy Horschel was going to be like 9K in this field.
I think Chris Kirk could be like 8,700 here. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I think both those guys are very underpriced. Overall pricing is exceptionally soft, but I think most lineup builds are probably going to have 2 or 3 from the 7K range this week.
Yeah, I think the high sevens into the low eights is very intriguing. Cam Davis, I'm definitely lower on him this week than I was last week. Our guy Dave, one of our Discord all-stars, one of my absolute favorite people in the Discord, brings up, oh, that reminds me, I want to do football at the end. I just don't know if we're going to have time because I have another pod right after this. But yeah, I mean, Cam Davis, like I said, he is Blake Lively in the town. Like there's, you know, he's going to draw you in and then break your heart and then piece it back together on Sunday.
Or the opposite. Yeah. Or the
opposite. Okay. Talk me through anyone lower in the sevens. Like anybody in the low sevens, because there are a couple guys that I like here as well below 7.5.
Yeah, so I'll just start with the 2 that I bet. One you mentioned already, Adam Svensson, just, you know, golf course fit, you know, PGA National, Honda Classic, Sony Open, RSM kind of guy. Great iron player, wedge player, putter, those sort of things. And then there's 125 to 1 on Nick Taylor this morning. Like,
yeah,
he loves this golf course. He's been in the top 11 3 years in a row. We've seen him win multiple big events in the past year and a half. I just think it's a bad price. His form is okay. So he's down at 7,100 and you can still get him outside of 100 to 1. I just think he's a better player than most of these guys here.
So the guys in the low sevens that are big stars for me. Well, this guy's mid sevens mainly, but Berger 7.5. I already bet Berger. I already talked about him on the Sunday show. So what number did you get on Berger?
80 on Rivers this morning.
Is that still there?
Good one.
I took a 65. Yeah, I took a 65. Yeah. I was going to bet Berger at anything over 50, to be honest with you. Woke up on the West Coast this morning and like, I wake up the Discord now has hundreds of messages before 8 a.m. on Monday morning, which is
Yep.
like my dream. I'm really proud of what we built. That's awesome. But I got 75 on DK on Burger.
Yep.
That's a great number from our very own Josh, our newsletter coordinator. The other guy that I want to mention, that speaking of rivers, I found 100 to 1 on this player, and I would have happily bet him at 75 to 1 is Thor. And I think a lot of the pro Clanton arguments can be used to describe Thor. Like, he has not had as much of the early success as Clanton. He still finished 8th at the RSM. He has a much better short game than Clanton, and he's a great middle iron player as well. And I think if you're just looking at it like the stock market and saying to yourself, okay, Luke Clanton in a month is going to be 20 to 1 in this field. Thor is going to be 35 to 1 in this field. Well, they're 100 right now. And we've seen with these younger guys that they don't typically tend to wait. And I actually think this is a really good golf course for Thor as well, based on his middle iron play.
I agree. I think he, obviously a West Coast guy, and I think he's a better putter than Clanton overall as well. And I think that can certainly help here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Anyone else in the sevens that you want to mention? I want to give a quick shout out to Seamus Power as well.
Yeah.
Another fall swing all-star for us. I know our guy Rishi, one of the sharpest DFS players out there, already mentioned Seamus. So that's always a good sign for me as well. I like that a lot, quite a bit in the sevens.
There's a few down here. I think just once again, pure talent, upside, bounce back. Like I will play Nick Dunlap again. I don't really care. Seems to be enjoying Hawaii with his girlfriend, so I can't blame him much there. Gary Woodland again. I have a problem, but loves this golf course. He's cheap enough. He's not going to win. He doesn't putt well enough, but he's down there. The only other one that I'll mention in terms of these guys coming over from Europe, Asia, etc., is Takumi Kanaya. Very, very good amateur career, but he's still very young. He had probably his best calendar year to date on the Asian Tour last year. Has not converted to made cuts PGA Tour events yet, but I am a big believer in his talent, and he's going to be 1% owned this week. So.
Yeah, shout out to Dave on Harris English. I like that play quite a bit. I don't know if he's going to make my betting card, but I definitely have some interest there in DK. I think he's 7.7K. Yeah, Brian, I guess this is just the week of formal apologies for me. Brian was like, Dunlap has a new girlfriend fade. I was like, that is the single dumbest piece of analysis I've ever heard, and proceeded to play Dunlap that he was terrible. He finished 52nd and did not help any of my DraftKings lineups having him in the pool. So great job, BK. Yeah, Dunlap with the new girlfriend. We're probably going to need to wait and see. Anyone in the sixes? I don't love this range that much, man. I'm going to have to spend more time. I'm going to rerun my model later this evening with the century numbers because there's some century stuff I want to factor. So I will update that all in the Discord and the insider sheets, but there were not a lot of players in the 6K range that had my attention.
There's another Matsuyama, so you might get some misclicks down there at 6K. But no, I think the first guy who stands out here, you talked about him a lot last week, Pat Kazire, still probably too cheap. Golf course that he's won at. He's won at multiple of these golf courses, so I think that's one. In that same sort of mold, Henrik Norlander had a really good summer ball last year. He hits the ball 210 off the tee, so it could be perfect for him. And then beyond that, I think it's just sort of those unknown upside plays with these young college kids and Korn Ferry grads. If I had to pick one or two.
So this is your specialty, because I know that you, Kyle, Kellogg, we have a ton of super, super sharp Korn Ferry Tour bettors in the Discord, and you are certainly one of those people. So talk me through your favorites of those that we should keep an eye out for this week.
Yeah. So skill set, I think overall who I'm bullish on, both at 6,300, actually, Isaiah Salinda and Ricky Castillo. Castillo. He has an extra syllable in there for no reason. With Ricky, he's an awful putter. I mean, awful. So that is the big concern with him. I think Isaiah Salim is like a real thing. Like he's going to be a good golfer. He's going to win, not this year necessarily, but he's going to be around for a while. So I like those two guys quite a bit.
Sweet. My guys in the sixes, I mean, the guys that showed the most value for me are Kazire at 69 and Chan Kim at 69. I know Kyle's a big Chan Kim guy as well, but I need to spend a little more time on the 6K range. That should probably be the question again as well for this week. So particularly it's a range that I need some help on. I'm going to talk through the Discord in the upcoming days, but comment below and your choice can be either split a $100 single entry with me next week for the American Express, where I pay the entry fee and we split the winnings. You could either build the lineup completely on your own or we can collaborate on it. I don't really care. But comment in the YouTube comment section your favorite 6K player on the board, and the highest scoring one, we will reconvene here next week, just like we did with Deacon the Legend. So get in touch with me, Deacon the Legend. Anything else, RP? Any closing thoughts? Any best bet for wildcard weekend?
Let's say with football, I'll just say this. I don't this might be a hot take, might not. I do not believe in the Washington Commanders at all.
I agree.
I don't want to bet Baker Mayfield.
I like Baker. Like, I was talking about this Discord last night. Like, I really like what I've seen from Baker. Like, I really do. Like, I think he's played some really inspired football this year. I think that, you know, he's like should be in the top 10 for MVP voting. Like he has that team plays really hard and that team plays for him. And I think their offense has a lot of explosiveness. Like the over under in that game is like 50.5. That's a really high over. But actually I bet the Bucks -3.
Yeah. I think I'm going to end there. And then I think overall, what I'm most looking forward to is the Pittsburgh Steelers getting annihilated in Baltimore. So
I like the under in that game, and I like the points with the Steelers. But when I say I like the under in that game, that is also like I think 27-3 is in the range of outcomes.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen. I do think the Steelers are going to put up.
I just don't think Pittsburgh can score. Like, I just don't trust them to score 10 points in that game. You know,
Dave's a huge Chargers fan. I'm having some difficulty with that game. Like I Chargers minus. It's one of those games for me where if the line was 2.5, I would bet the Chargers and not think twice about it. If the line was like 4, I would probably bet Houston. And the line being at 3, like I think the Chargers are going to win. I think the line's right. That like I don't know. Maybe the move is teasing the Texans up. Like I do think it's in the range of outcomes that the Chargers completely annihilate them. Like I think it. I am going to expect a somewhat competitive game from the Texans. They've played.
So the Texans never get blown out, right? Like they're always around. My biggest concern, like I know they beat Buffalo really early in the year, but like, have they beaten anybody? Like I just haven't seen. Yeah, like I just haven't seen like the last 12 weeks. It just feels like they haven't beaten or played anybody. So very interested to see if they can win that game at home.
I know they lost to the Jets earlier this year, I believe, right? That was one of their losses. All right, guys. So, so remember to comment in the YouTube comment section, not the live chat, but the YouTube comment section, your favorite DFS play in the 6K range. We will go over the winner for that next week for an opportunity to win a $100 single entry fee, one of my favorite DK contests. And if you haven't, like and sub this video and sub to our YouTube channel, and join the squad over at Inside Sports Network. We've got an insane amount of content. Really proud of the community and the culture that we've built over there. It's a really fun place. So enjoy the golf and football this weekend. Cheers, RB.
See you, bud.